everyone. This is Joey Langenbrunner Podcast. And so today we speak about sovereignty here. I got a great guest and a really close personal friend of mine. Her name is Melissa Lindsay Freedman. Okay. She is a financial educator and wellness coach. Melissa, it's great to have you here.
Thanks, Joey. I'm so happy to be here. Yeah, I'm a financial educator and financial wellness coach. Very excited to dive into all these amazing topics we have today.
That's beautiful. Let's get right into it.
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me, Joey.
Awesome. You have a great background, by the way. I'm like, where are you based at?
Well, I'm currently nomadic and have a few different citizenships and residences.
Love to hear that. That is what I'm all about. But let's talk about what you're all about. So, let's get right into it. Is that cool with you?
Yeah, of course. I'd love to.
Perfect. So you are all about financial and wellness. So to get right into it,
Financial wellness. One
yeah,
piece.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I love wellness as a whole, but I think the financial portion of wellness is actually definitely makes up a lot of things. It contributes to your emotional, physical, and mental health in so many ways. Finances are so important. So yeah, financial wellness.
So it is really important. So just speaking on that, what does financial sovereignty mean to you, and why is it important for individuals?
I think it's so interesting because when I think about financial sovereignty, it's such a buzzword right now, sovereignty. Everybody wants it. Everybody wants to know what it is. The thing is, real true sovereignty would be being completely unbanked. For me, I have financial sovereignty because I am banked in multiple countries and I have access to credit and access to money and lending and borrowing power in multiple countries. And I'm also very heavy into crypto and unbanked in that aspect, where I hold a lot of crypto outside of traditional banking platforms.
So do you hold these in trust? And also, what are kind of the best jurisdiction for trusts and banking, in your opinion?
Yeah, I do hold some crypto in trust, but basically, I funnel my entire life through trusts. And I don't know about geographic jurisdictions when it comes to trust, but I do know that if you are an American, there are just so many aspects of working with the tax system and the financial systems in the US that can allow you to register many different kinds of trust to support you along your own financial growth and wealth building journey. And so, for example, there's all different kinds of real estate trusts or personal trusts or business trusts and things where you can funnel different aspects of your finances in order to optimize reduce your tax liability, optimize your efficiency, optimize your funds, optimize your finances. And so I would definitely encourage anybody who hasn't looked into trusts or charities to do so, because it is a way of having more of a personal touch to your business. Now as a US, as a US resident, if you have an LLC, you need to basically report to the IRS every quarter, right? And if you're
Right.
doing certain transactions, sometimes you need to report every month, depending on what your business does. So, it does give us a lot more freedom to be registering these trusts or charities.
Yeah, yeah. And what's so great, this actually goes into my next question. How can people break free from traditional financial norms? Because, and what I mean by that is not a lot of people think about setting up trusts. A lot of people don't even think about setting up an LLC because everyone is just, getting a salary and they're paying crazy amounts in taxes and all this kind of stuff. And so mentally, how do you break free of just the salary mindset and make that first LLC and then start that trust? What's the first steps in doing that?
Yeah, I think when somebody comes to me and they want to work with me, I work through a process with clients where number one, we're focusing on who you are as an individual. We're focusing on your vision and your goals.
Okay.
Because quite transparently, sometimes having trusts, having charities is not going to be beneficial to everybody. And I think that's a narrative that's happening right now in social media. People think oh, I should get a trust, I should get a charity, maybe I should sign up and do a 508c1a. And I'm it doesn't work for everybody. You have to understand what these structures are and understand what works for you and works with your lifestyle. Now, if you're trying to like completely break free and you want to take the steps, like you said, Joey, of like registering a trust, registering a charity, I would definitely encourage you to start talking to different types of companies and individuals that are doing this, because like based on what you want to do, your aspirations, your goals, what your day-to-day life is, that determines the kind of categories that you want to look into for trusts or charities. And I think when you're just sitting down and thinking about it, step one would be focus on who you are as an individual and build your lifestyle around what you desire, not around what the narrative is and what, reducing taxes is going to do to your bottom line. Because I think reducing taxes is like a huge narrative right now. And I know this is what you do, Joey. You help people relocate to help them reduce like their tax burdens and help them get more money into their own pockets. But, quite transparently, it's not for everybody. Some people need certain aspects of the 9 to 5 and of the system. And so if you want to break free and you want to grow your wealth and you're, one of Joey's clients that's making like multi-millions or, billions, and you want more access for your family and more freedom, then yeah, there's like so many types of trusts. And I tell people, if you want to work with the system, it's better to work with the devil that you know than the devil that you don't. And the devil that we know as Americans is the IRS and the US tax system here. And there's so many ways around it. As a born Canadian who came from a totally different system, I have chosen to be a tax resident in the United States and optimize my opportunity here and my liability here versus doing it in Canada because it's way more favorable here.
So what's interesting, when I met you and you told me that, I was actually really surprised because, like I have a lot of my, let's say, more crazier clients, sometimes they'll renounce and get like a Caribbean passport and all this kind of stuff to get out of the US tax code. And I seriously thought about, doing stuff like that, like 5, 6 years ago. And then I kind of figured out that like there are a lot of advantages to being, like an American resident or citizen, that you can take advantage of our credit system, our banking infrastructure. I get it. Like we're not Singapore, I'll always advise like a lot of people like, hey, you want like the best banks? Sure, go to Singapore, but you want like the best credit cards, all this kind of stuff. The US is really great. And on top of that, like again, like this is not any tax advice or any financial advice here, but what's great about US banking is that US banks don't necessarily share information outside of the US. So in that perspective, like the US is like the biggest tax haven in the world, mostly for non-Americans. So any of my non-American clients always tell them like, yeah, like set up your company in the US and have all your banking through the US and get like a business credit card, and these kind of things. But like for Americans, there are some advantages and stuff like that. So when you told me that, like that's why I wanted to kind of speak to you, because I was like, that is a very interesting perspective. Being an American citizen or a resident isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it really depends on what your goals are.
Yeah, and I'm sure, Joey, like you work with people that like maybe they want to renounce or they want to go to another country. And the thing is, like, you go to another location and you geographically relocate, and there's all these other challenges that you have to deal with. So it's like, really, that's why I say start from where you are, who you are, what your vision is, what your goals are, and build your life around that. Because if you're thinking that the grass is greener on the other side, sometimes it is, but sometimes it's not.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I've lived overseas. And Melissa, I know you have lived overseas and stuff like that. And so we've all had our own unique experiences with like different banking infrastructure and stuff like that. And to be honest, the main banks I personally use is actually here in the US, So, and there's a reason for that. Am I good? But obviously we're not going to hold all of our money, in banks and stuff like that. We want to be unbanked and be, sovereign, so I'm glad you brought up crypto and stuff like that. And that's a whole nother conversation, like maybe we'll talk about, some other time. So like what are some practical steps someone can take to gain control over their financial future? Like just break it down for me.
Yeah, I mean, number one, like building credit in your country, having access to borrowing power and having the ability to grow your income with your skills, having the ability to understand where every single one of your dollars is going, and the mindset of understanding how to make your dollars work for you, And that could be anything from, like investing in certain asset classes, or
Yeah.
like just really making sure that you are wise with your spending habits. Sometimes there's ways to like completely pay rent up front, and that can save you a lot of money. Like little things that you would never think of that can optimize your bottom line, but it's a complete mindset shift. And it really comes down to looking at how you're living your life, what your day to day of your life is, your financial responsibilities, what your personal financial circumstances are right now. Like people that are in debt are like sometimes like a lot of afraid of debt and scared of debt. And it's like, there's nothing to be afraid of. It's understanding, is this debt benefiting me or is it hurting me? And how do I create this opportunity where if it's hurting me, I like change the narrative so it is helping me and supporting me along accomplishing the goals that I want to. And so really it's just like understanding where you're coming from, starting from square one, working through the process of like maybe talking with somebody who understands money and has like a creative approach to money. Feel free to DM me, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer any questions on Instagram, and really just like start understanding where you want to go and how you want to get there, because there's so many people that end up coming to me that are in their 50s and 60s that are like, I don't want to be risky at this point. I'm too old. I just want something slow and steady. I can wait 10 years. But the reality is like, they've missed a lot of opportunity because they weren't vulnerable enough to ask the questions and vulnerable enough to really put themselves out there and say like, hey, I'm ashamed, but I'm willing to learn and I'm willing to take chances. If you're young and you're in your 20s, go for it. Ask people questions, tell them where you are, be transparent, because you'll learn. But also finding the right people to go to be able to guide you in the process, because I think that's a crucial part of the whole like financial experience, is really understanding who to trust, who's an authority, who really knows what they're talking about, who's educated on the matter, and how can you find these people. So, asking friends, family members, people that are already successful, if you can pick their brain, if they can support you through certain aspects of learning and growing, is really great. I tend to ramble a lot, but I hope I'm answering your
Yeah, no, I was gonna no, no. I was gonna say one of the biggest things that really worked well for me is understanding on who you surround yourself with. Because if
question.
you are surrounding yourself with people who are, like they may be great people, whatever, but like if they're broke, if they're not taking risks, especially in your 20s, and still into your 30s, like you want to take risks so you can bring like build that wealth early on. So, as you said, when you get to like your 50s or your 60s, you're a lot more conservative because you already made your money. But in your 20s and 30s, take all the risks as much as possible. Go hang out with not necessarily like rich and famous or successful people per se, but people who are willing to take those risks, who they have seen success. Hey, they already sold their first business, I think is huge. For me, I met this one guy, he started a tech company and stuff like that. And he was successful and he was only like 5 years older than me, but he's already had like $60 million. And I'm like, this guy, I need to make him like my mentor. And even though I'm in my early 30s, I wanted him to make my mentor. So like you're never too old or too young to like look up to someone else and have them be like your mentor as well. I think that's one of the biggest things as well. But
Yeah.
surround
And it could
yourself with
be
the people.
but like to your point, Joey, it doesn't have to be somebody as like advanced as somebody who sold a company in their 20s. It could be like you're working in a corporate environment and somebody's an average millionaire and somebody's investing in a 401k and somebody's doing traditional things, but they are making it work for them. It's finding out what they did, understanding their path, and I shifted my complete money mindset and my whole approach to finances once I actually started working in environments with average millionaires and really understanding how they approached money and looking at them and how they approach money, because really like your pathway to wealth is only one of so many options, you know? And the average person is going to get to wealth most of the time by saving and most of the time by investing. And, so understanding who these people are and how they made it work for themselves could be a way for the average person just to get in. Go talk to your colleagues, go talk to people on the C-suite if you're like a junior at a company. Ask them, what they did to become successful, and understand their approach to money. See if you can take 20 minutes to pick their brain and come with questions. Find the mentors that are going to support you. Get free advice and free calls from people that are in the financial space. Reach out to brokerages. Talk to people who are working in crypto and trading in crypto. Get involved in communities that are going to be doing the cool things that you want to be doing with money. Understand, people like Joey that are working in like tax liability and multiple citizenships and things like that. So yeah, it's like really just looking at like, how do you want to live your amazing financially free life, and what does that look like? And then finding the right people that are going to lead you towards that path. And like, it's amazing that we have social media and so many people that are just like
Oh yeah.
selling their blueprints and selling their time and their money and their energy, like me, to give you all this stuff, because I wish I would have had it.
Oh,
I had to
absolutely.
grind to get it.
Where were you 10 years ago? I could have used you then.
I hear that all the time. And I hear that from people in finance all the time, which is so interesting. I have a lot of people in finance that reach out to me, and clients that are financial educators. And it's pretty
Wow.
fascinating to see that, like, you know, somebody who never had a traditional financial background has all these finance people reaching out. It's pretty
I
cool.
mean, I mean that is honestly really cool. And like I'm sure that's like something that you had to like really sit down, work hard and manifest. Because like something like this doesn't happen overnight, like this is something that takes years to like really figure out, understand, learn, especially, by just listening to audiobooks is a huge thing for me. Talking to people, all these kind of things, like surrounding yourself. And I know you do a great job with that. And like what is really important is, how your personal values influence financial decision making and independence. So tell me a little bit about so we're getting a little personal here, but like what are your personal values that really influenced you in your financial decision making?
For me, like one of my top values is freedom. I want freedom. And so I value like freedom, community slash relationships,
Yeah.
and love. That's like those two things are super important to me. And I value my health and my well-being. And so for me, like having my time is a huge luxury. So I'll spend my money on, getting like groceries delivered, or getting in Ubers versus like driving everywhere, because it optimizes my time and it helps me with my health and my well-being. I have like, done biohacking, and I have a private concierge doctor and all these things that are supporting me along
Fancy.
my journey. Yeah. So, for me, those are my top values. And so once I got to a certain financial level, I was like, I'm going to be reinvesting my money into those things to optimize my life, because those things are of value and importance to me. And when you really understand what your values are, and you get to like a financial point where you feel like you have more money to be able to spend on, day-to-day expenses, that's when you can start optimizing and creating a more luxurious life. But for me, I would definitely say, like, to the point that you just discussed, education is also like a big thing. I'm constantly educating myself in the
Awesome.
process. And I don't know about you, but like I know when you're working with clients, there's people that are like, coming in for maybe like citizenship in a certain area, but the laws are always changing, right? So you need to know what the legalities are, what the process is. For me, it's like I don't know everything in finance. Personal finance is always changing. Taxes are always changing. Legalities are always changing. There's always a new kind of trust that's like this sexy new trust that's come around that's like less taxes or whatever. You need to just be abreast of like understanding what's out there, be on the pulse with other people, educate yourself and continually educate yourself to really be able to, approach things in the best way possible for you.
Well said. Yeah, no, I think you bring up a few really good concepts of just like, especially on occasion, certain trusts or certain financial products will kind of come and go, you know. So I think like one of the most popular things is like a IOU. You know,
Hmm.
right now I got tons of friends that are getting into that and trying to sell me that and stuff like that. You know, and we don't need to get into that, you know, too much, but like a lot of times, like these things, you know, come and go, especially in my field, like different programs will come and go. So if you're talking to an expert in whatever field, it's important to feel comfortable with them and know and realize that, hey, this person is staying up to date in their field. And I know you do, and I will, you know, and I definitely try my best, but it's important to find education, find people who really do a good job in understanding these concepts because it's not just spitting out facts. You know, like, okay, I read this brand new tax thing that Trump is going to probably do, you know, with tariffs or, you know, like Trump was talking about getting rid of like crypto tax for like crypto companies that are based in the US. How would that impact certain coins, you know, that I'm investing in, you know?
Hmm.
So you really have to dig deep into understanding kind of like the ripple effects of these things because these things are always changing. And Melissa, I know you're an absolute pro at understanding that, but it's not just like reading some headline and then like spitting back out to your clients. You know, you really have to understand like what are the long-term effects on this? Is this actually going to happen? Understanding like the politics involved in both of our fields is also important too. So I personally will always try to like be aware of like all the geopolitical news and stuff like that going on because like that affects, you know, like how is Trump's tariffs going to affect our income taxes here? You know, like is Trump actually going to get rid of like income tax? Like, what's your feelings on that, by the way?
It's not like I think everything that everybody hears, like they automatically assume like things are just gonna happen at a drop of a hat, like
Right.
overnight. Second, no, like it's gonna take some time. I don't think income taxes are completely going to go away. That's like
Darn.
seems impossible. Tariffs would have to be super high for all of our income taxes to completely go away. But quite honestly, like, you know, I do foresee that there's going to be a lot of tax changes in the next 4 years during the Trump administration, and I'm very excited for it because I do think it's going to change a lot of things. I think if you are an American or even American-based business, you have a lot of opportunity to grow financially and do a lot of amazing things during the Trump administration, and this is the time. And so I definitely say, like, if you are in any kind of a business right now, like in a US based business that is servicing the US, definitely like put the pedal to the metal and go during the Trump administration because we don't know what's going to happen after. But yeah, I like the bottom line is, you know, it for me it's always like tailoring it to the specific individual. When you and I, Joe, I think work with clients, it's always like I am trying to tailor the strategy and the plans according to each individual person's lifestyle and what their desires are. And I don't think a lot of people do that because it's when you go to a financial advisor, you go to like a wealth manager or any kind of an investment community, they're just going to say, do this, do this, do that. And people sometimes love that. You know, people that just want to be told what to do and want like an average life are going to love that. But people who really want like the control and like the freedom are going to maybe come to somebody like me and they're going to want more of a tailored approach to their lifestyle and their finances. And it's definitely unique and interesting, but it's a lot of fun because I feel like for me, that's what moved the needle. It was like I wasn't going to grow and do all these things investing in what everybody else invested in. I wasn't going to create my life around, you know, somebody who's working a 9 to 5 in their 60s because I didn't want to do that. And so it's really understanding like who the people you're working with, what they want, servicing them. If you could do that, you could do that really well. You'll be successful in the next 4 years in the US because as much as you and I've traveled internationally, I think we both know that like the US economy, the US dollar is still number one. As much as everybody around the world wants to say it's not and wants to believe it's not. And yes, you know, there are many growing economies in the Middle East, there are many growing economies in South America, there are many growing economies in Europe, and I love those places. Don't get me wrong. You know, the US dollar is still king. and the US economy is still king. And people still look to the United States as the American dream. And so I don't see that narrative changing that fast as much as people want it to or believe it will. I just don't see it changing overnight.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point with like this new Trump administration coming in. The next 4 years are going to be crazy because he's really going to try to push for more onshore type of activity in the US. Just with like his first administration, like a lot of companies actually moved back to the US, because of like the guilty tax or whatever. So the US is just going to become a lot stronger. Now, what I will say, with like, let's say like the whole like BRICS movement, like I don't want to get too like geopolitical here, but like I do see that maybe in the future, especially after Trump is gone, we could see a way or like a version of the economy where like you have like two things going on. Like you have like the Western like US dollar and then like maybe like BRICS over here, stuff like that. I have no idea. But as you said, like US is king right now. The retail market in the US is the best place to sell for sure. We have the most wealth. We have like just like the most entrepreneur-minded people here in the US. And Canada's close, second for sure. Of course, like you got like the UK and some countries in East Asia and the Middle East and stuff like that, like Dubai or Singapore or whatever. But the US is definitely number one for now, especially for like the next 4 years. Who knows what will happen after that? We will see. But nonetheless, I mean, Melissa, you're definitely going to be a great resource for all these changes for whatever type of like financial education and this any kind of this stuff. So I'm going to follow you very closely on Instagram to get like the closest updates, and I look forward to much of your success, especially like these next 4 years, because a lot of people are going to need help with all the various changes, because this isn't going to happen overnight. But with how I don't want to use the word radical, but like a lot of like the things that Trump is kind of pushing, like are
Mhm.
crazy radical changes, and you
Yeah.
better think twice if like one or two of these things are going to slip through that's going to change the entire game. And you're going to be like a great, great resource for that for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I do question like what's going to happen with BRICS and who else is going to join BRICS. And I do see that that could happen, in the next 4 years. It's possible, definitely, to supersede like the US economy, but we shall see. Only time will tell. I just think like a US passport is really still very strong compared to a lot of countries, but the moral of the story is, like work with the devil, not the devil you don't. So if I have a very good friend who's like from the Philippines and she works basically does all of her business and everything through her country because she knows the system and she knows how it works, but she lives abroad in other countries. And her husband is from Europe and they live in Mexico. So, they float around to different places all the time, but she's like, I'm a Filipino and I want to work with the Philippines government because that's the system I know and it makes sense and it works for me and that's where all my businesses are. And I'm like, amazing. And she's a very successful millionaire with multiple passports. She's created this amazing life. So, yeah, happy to answer anybody's questions. If anybody wants to reach out on Instagram, DM me, Melissa Lindsay Freedman. So, Joey, if you can tag that somewhere, that'd be great.
Absolutely, you got it. Taking the words right out of my mouth. But anyways, this has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And you'll be hearing more from us in the future. So make sure to follow Melissa, make sure to follow me, and for any type of content when it comes to wealth strategy, Melissa is the person to talk to. Cool, thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.